celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
I'm not so concerned about Roman Reigns not being there full time for WWE based on what's going on with the company. You know why? Because this is something that needed to have happen. Unlike my fellow podcast radio brethren out there, listen, I understand that there's always that first initial response to complain and also to gripe and to panic. But there's no reason to panic here. I don't believe that at all. To me, when I look at this whole situation, I say to myself, Roman Reigns, we already know that he's at a threshold now. He is plateaued. Like, they're going to struggle now with finding matches for him to go and have as long as he's holding those two belts. Now, they are doing the whole part-time wrestler thing again, where Brock Lesnar was in the same vein. So here we go again. Another part-timer holding the belts, and there's no real plan as to who is there to take the belts off of him. And that's the bad part. But the truth is, the company really needed something like this to happen. And it really does explain why things were changing right now with the company when it came to the real new initiative, not just the next in line, but the bit of a reset that the company did after WrestleMania when they knew they had certain stars that were not going to be there. They still have certain stars that are down in front and center, and they're being used primarily, but the problem is they're at a bad spot where what else are they going to do? I mean, they got to do something now about being able to go and get the most out of the rest of the roster. They have to build main eventers. They have to build stars. Now, superstars is one thing where they're just recognizable across all levels. No matter what show you put them on, they're going to get a pop when they get the entrance. They're going to come out, and people will somewhat watch their matches. But significantly look at them as a main eventer that's going to be end-all, be-all champion. That's going to draw stadiums. Well, they don't have those yet. Not really. The whole brand can bring stadium shows together, but Roman Reigns right now has been the biggest draw for those kind of shows. And now that they don't have him anymore, what are they going to do next? And that's something they have to figure out. And I don't know, we can see what stars are looking at right now and who can be brought forward, but there's no one at the level of Roman Reigns. And they don't have anybody planned to do that. But what we know now is that the company now more than ever needs to build main event stars, and need to build them right now. So they're under the gun. They're under a lot of pressure. Now they've pulled off another record profitable quarter, another record quarter profitability for the company, and all they can do is continue to go up. So what are they going to do that? Until they get their new broadcast deals, which obviously they're going to be valued even more, they have to continue to keep that momentum going into the rest of the year. So what are they going to do about that? Well, we know that on Sunday, after I did the post Backlash show for WrestleMania Backlash, did a post show for that. You can look for it here, WrestlingIsReal.com. I made mention of how in Trenton, New Jersey, at a house show, Roman Reigns did mention that you're going to see less of him. Well, now we understand what that means. The new face was that he worked out a new deal with WWE to allow him to do more acting. So he's getting the deal much like where The Rock got to do down the line, much like where John Cena has been. So limited dates, more time because he wants to get into Hollywood. After I saw him in Hobbs and Shaw, it was just a matter of time. Like, the guy just looked too good on camera. And, if he gets his acting chops together and he can be that next big action star, folks like Batista are getting older. You can't really rely on, Jason Statham to be out there all the time. The Rock is 50 years old. It's time to find some younger blood. So if Roman Reigns can come into the mix now and start acting right away, the guy's got a great runway of chances to work in acting and a lot of different things. And he's going to get pushed right away because of the fact of the pedigree of what WWE continues to churn out in terms of Hollywood caliber talent, because they all learn that same system of becoming performers. And it's not that much of a stretch, as we have seen with how many different stars right now. Okay? You already know about John Cena. Stone Cold Steve Austin got to do it. The Rock has done it. And he is, he is a bona fide, like, multi-media mogul now. Because it's not just the acting he did. He put it all into his other production work. Dave Bautista in the same vein. They're never short of work. John Cena is never short of work. He has multiple projects now. Sasha Banks, we haven't seen much of her, but also because she's doing Mandalorian, and she's continuing to be actively working. They're all making good money. Becky Lynch being appeared on an episode of Billions, but that, of course, after she had her baby, it was a little bit tougher to go and get back out there. But Hollywood will be calling on her again. Just watch out. And there will be other stars. As we've talked about before on this program, we know that the Hollywood pipeline is looking at WWE on a regular basis. That's where the sports entertainment route goes in. So if you want to judge sports entertainment, go right ahead. But the entertainment part is because they are entertaining so much that Hollywood looks at them and says, you are the kind of people that can entertain our audiences. We can get you, we don't have to put you in front of streaming, in front of Netflix. We can put you box office. Now, some of it is streaming. Look at John Cena doing Peacemaker. A lot of critical acclaim for that among the cinematic universes and all the genre-based viewers out there of streaming of HBO Max. Mandalorian with Sasha Banks over on Disney Plus. And there's just... And then you think about Batista getting his own vehicles to do movies. You might see a whole lot about it, but My Spy and Stuber, and then the parts he gets to do in Dune and Blade Runner, like he's doing big, and of course another Guardians of the Galaxy coming up. He's just working like crazy. And so all of that just tells you that, and then the Rockaloni had Jungle Cruise last year. He's got a lot more left to go and put together. I mean, maybe he's not even doing so much movies that he is working on production on various projects. So I would have no doubt that The Rock, he could put him in through triple bucks and put him in some projects right away. He could bankroll some movies right now, The Rock, if he wanted to. And there will be others that will look at the same thing. So Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio, he explains, quote, it's not it for him, but the situation is he got a new deal, and the new deal is for far less dates. I don't know how many house shows he is going to be doing, but it will be less than the number he's doing now. So one of the person being there for a while and being valuable is that you can call certain shots. And he's got the power to maintain the championship and work fewer dates like Brock had and Hulk Hogan used to have. So he's going to be new phase in your life. He's got young kids and everything like that. In his mid to late 30s, he probably wants to preserve his body a little bit more. Listen, it's a smart move for him. If we look, how long has he actually been out there rolling all together? Like, he's been out there working it. Has it been a decade for him already? I want to say it is. Actually, it was August 19, 2010. Okay. He has main evented, 6 WrestleManias. He's a Grand Slam champion. He's done everything. Currently, 618 days as Universal Champion. And also with the combined the undisputed point of him as where he is now with both titles. His record now, it was 2010 and then 2012 he debuted. So about 10 years after he debuts with the Shield. The debut was November 2012, but seriously, 10 years almost to the day. He's out here and he's putting in the work. A couple of bumps when it comes to his leukemia treatment, to injuries, to his own personal issues where he was, penalized for personal enhancement drugs or PEDs for violating the wellness policy. Like, he's gone through his own things, but, for the most part, that guy has generated. He has been on the company. He has been loyal to the company. He has done everything the company has asked of him. That guy has performed, again, this is where WWE continues to do the one thing where they build stars that are just so huge. But they need to be able to go and build stars within the spectrum of their own company. But Vince McMahon's aspirations are so big, they're Hollywood big. And the whole idea of just not realizing that, you're not going to keep a star that you build so big in that WWE bubble forever. Some stars you actually do that with The Miz, with Randy Orton, okay? Seth Rollins to a point, Kevin Owens to a point, Drew McIntyre to a point. You haven't seen them bust the bubble and go out to Hollywood. Bobby Lashley. Some of them went other routes instead. Because some others, they realize wrestling is not going to be the career end-all, be-all. And it's smart for some of these stars to do that. So it's no surprise that Roman Reigns wants to do this right now. But, of course, he wants to continue to be important to what the company needs to do. But he's been out there. I mean, what's been asked of him? Will be 100 days short of 2 years reigning as the champion. And he's been the top guy for a long time now in the scope of what WWE is and what the fans look at. For the bulk, past the Thunderdome era to now, he's been the top guy. He's the draw. More than what Stone Cold could ever be, more than what Brock Lesnar or Ronda Rousey could ever be, more than what Becky Lynch would ever be. That's what's going on. So he's going to get time to recover if he has any injuries he had suffered. There were rumors that he suffered an injury during his WrestleMania title match. Now, the one thing that's going to happen is we haven't seen where he's gone in terms of being represented by any agencies yet in Hollywood. As far as I know, he's not there yet. But, knowing where the things are, I mean, I just saw that John Cena just changed agencies to ICM now. He's got a big representation right now. And if I'm right, I believe there was a thing where WMG was doing that for him, but I forget who's representing him right now. Okay. Well, we have to go back. I don't know if he's actually within a particular agency, but there was a point back when 2020 where WWE was actually going to do their own in-house talent agency. So they could be pitching him for Hollywood deals. Nick Khan had posited the theory that he was looking to reposition WWE as an in-house management firm for all third-party opportunities for talent that go through the company. Now, I don't know if that's being done here, but what we do know is that they were trying to recruit a talent brand manager back in 2020 for the talent management group. Now, I don't know if that actually ever got put together or not, but you have to go and figure it out into the whole mix now that Roman Reigns is looking for his way to get into someplace, and what are they going to do with him? Now, Nick Khan even talked about this last month about his plans for Hollywood. And people didn't see this to the radar, but this was talked about last month. Liam Crowley at WrestlingInc.com actually reported on it. And so Nick Khan spoke to thetown.com, and he mentioned that he's the next guy to make that virtual leap. Quote, "We think he's certainly up there. We have big plans to help him cross over, which we think will be great for him and certainly great to do with him." And he can follow the exact same Hollywood transition The Rock did himself. And Khan would say, okay, I think he was given advice early on, hey, get rid of the muscles. Don't be a handsome leading man. Distance yourself from WWE. And that's where movies like The Tooth Fairy became, the early projects for The Rock. And he, to his credit, like Vince and like other people, has a unique ability to see things clearly. Instead of saying, hey, this Tooth Fairy thing was great, I made X number of millions of dollars on it. It was more like, this is not what I want this to be. It wasn't authentic. And that Vince McMahon, Nick Khan actually mentioned, played a crucial role in course-correcting Rock's acting career. And here's what Khan said as well. One of the people, quote, Rock has shared with me, and Vince has shared with me, Rock called was Vince. Rock called Vince and said, hey, this is not working the way I think it should be working. I think I want to reattach to WWE. I think I need to get a new agent. Vince helped him do that. And Rock was on his path to where he is now. And you know what? He's right. Because seriously, when you look at The Rock's, his work going forward and the career that he put together when it came to the movies he put out, let's put it like this. If we look at the movies he did early on in his career to now, let's bring that up first. Because the movies he did prior to 2010, okay? I'm going to put it to you like this. Everything truly changed once he was booked as Hobbs on Fast 5. Once he got that role, the current incarnation of The Rock is what we have today. That's what I believe. Because remember this, you go back, he had the game plan, that would have been more like his thing, Gridiron Gang. He had Be Cool, he had Walking Tall, The Rundown, The Scorpion King, The Mummy Returns. So he had certain roles that got put into play. And then eventually, working down the line, by 2011, as Nick Khan is making brand down, the timeline pans out. You look and say, okay, after WrestleMania 37, at that time, he was being brought in basically the reboot, what brought Fast and Furious back to light. Because honestly, if the fifth one didn't do as well as it did, the whole game changed. Because Fast and Furious as a franchise probably would have never survived that as it did. But it did. And as a result, Rock came a part of that and lasted for another, 4 more films on that, plus Hobbs and Shaw, now the spinoff to that, which will have a sequel, I'm sure. Then he did the Journey to the Mysterious Island, and then you go down and you look, he did G.I. Joe, he did Pain and Gain with Mark Wahlberg, right? Another Fast and Furious, he did Hercules, another Fast and Furious, San Andreas, and then he did Central Intelligence with Kevin Hart. Then he did the Disney movie Moana, another Fast and Furious. He did Baywatch. He did Jumanji. He did Rampage. He did Skyscraper. And remember, it wasn't that long ago. That guy was now, let's just put him main eventer. Let's put him marquee talent across the board. We know he had ballers by that point, and then so much more after that. And he has just been on top of it, no doubt about it. And he's been working it hardcore. A lot of work. And not to mention all the work he's done behind the scenes of his own projects. Who's to say that we don't see down the line where Roman Reigns could follow the same suit? Because I have no doubt in my mind, if Roman Reigns is brought in, however you want to use him, he can be a player much like a Batista does and work his way up to marquee status. I think the guy can be a leading man. There's a lack of leading men like him in Hollywood right now. They need, and it's not just action stars. My thing is, I think that Roman Reigns could be multi-versatile. He doesn't have to do just action. I think there's a lot more to him that we could see. I don't know what it's going to be, but listen, there's no doubt about it. This guy has everything that Hollywood wants. He's got movie star good looks. The guy's he is just chiseled and jacked and just looks like $1 million. The guy looks like a movie star, and they don't have guys like him for certain movies. You can build franchises around him. You could do that. In a way, Jumanji coming back with a second and third after the initial one they did back in the 90s, and you see this here and you're saying to yourself, man, Hobbs and Shaw is now its own universe, and then you have Jumanji as its own universe, and damn it, what can you say? The Rock is holding on, and really, he could do buddy comedies, he could do dramas, he could do all the action stuff. He's put himself out through a lot of different places. He's been very damn good. Roman Reigns has the same acumen, obviously the same effort, the same ambition, the same follow through. I don't see how you couldn't see Roman Reigns transition into what The Rock did, or what Batista did at the least. And I'm not talking about Batista being anything bad either, because Batista on his own end, he's been versatile too. Like, it's amazing how well Batista's done, because we weren't sure what he was going to do after being Dax the Destroyer. But man, that guy's just been getting roles after roles. Villain in a Bond movie, He's doing buddy comedy. He's doing goofy stuff. Working with a little kid actors. Right? He's just doing amazing stuff. Working with Kamal Nanjiani and a funny movie. Man, one of the last funny movies I saw in a theater, Stuber, was actually one of the last movies I actually thought it was funny. And it just surprises me how well this has gone. And so to see him go this route makes all the sense in the world to me. So what are they going to do now? Well, Nick Khan said it. He was planning to go and do this right now. Rock on. This was the plan that he wanted to go with and see what he could do. And so I can appreciate what he wants to do now and where they're going to go with Roman Reigns. And he's got the support of WWE's side. It only makes sense because right now he's too big for WWE. He just can't be the only one. But that should be more than enough for all these stars. Listen, when you look at the stars that left for AEW or were going to be released, future endeavored, I said this before, they're not going to have the Hollywood acumen, much like the stars that are on top right now. They don't have it. But that's the level of star power that WWE wants in their marquee talent. So good, they're Hollywood good. That's the level. And, there's some stars that could almost be put into some movies if you want to. I mean, I can see where Seth Rollins or Cody Rhodes or Becky Lynch or Ronda Rousey. I mean, Ronda Rousey was in movies before. You can see all that going on. And I'm like, there's still much more to the mix of what they have. Plus, because of the acumen of how Hollywood's done with WWE and the fact that they can get stars of other realms to come into play, influencers like Logan Paul, boxers like Tyson Fury, multi-platinum musicians like Bad Bunny. Listen, these are not people to throw over anymore. This is not Kathy Lee and Hoda. This is not Al Sharpton going on the shows. This is not Dennis Miller. These are serious, bona fide, major players in entertainment. And they're pulling them out here now, man. And that's the level that Nick Khan brings into this company. And what the Nick Khan vision is right now, when it comes to the company and doing the stadium shows, they're obviously making the changes now to get the stars up to a certain level. And I really think that the direction they've been going with a lot of their storylines, they're not perfect. I told you that. But you know what? The way they played off WrestleMania Backlash was really good. And, sure, we could go ahead and criticize a bit what was done on Raw in terms of what they're going to do waiting until the next pay-per-view comes up and how they're going to handle things. So sure, we can talk about that. But really, there's a whole lot more there. I mean, look. There's just so many more shows. You got Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Clash of the Castle, Survivor Series. So many more big shows to put together. So for me to go ahead and see them take a little bit of a hit on Raw or SmackDown where it's not as thumping on, fueling on all cylinders right now, that's okay. They're going to eventually get that all figured out because they're going to have to build to make these shows stand out. I mean, it's not so much for the audience watching, on the internet and my fellow podcast wrestling brethren complaining about it. That's a small minority. Remember, even I'm part of that small minority. I'm aware of that. But when it comes to the bigger audience, listen, the crowd that are getting out for these shows, sure, they might be sweetening the audio. They might be enhancing it. But you know what? They did sell out Providence. They did do a good job selling WrestleMania, getting 65,000+ each day legitimately to the shows. So I'll give them credit for that, even though they bumped the numbers up. Of course they did. But they're doing everything right now, and I think the momentum right now for the company is positive. They're in an upswing right now. I don't think they need to be crapped on as much as they were before. I think they're making some changes that are right. Judgment Day, they got the faction here. Can they build to a fourth person? Probably. I don't know if it's going to be Ciampa, but I think keeping it as a 3-person faction and then doing some other things with some other people out there, that's good. And then just building some of the stars you already know that you have at the top that are, bona fide veterans with your McIntyres and your Lashleys and your Seth Rollins. You're going to have to keep them up, and you're going to have to, and Cody Rhodes, you're going to have to make those stars stay strong and, put them on some runs where they are so dominant, they become, legitimate for the marquee, that people will not question, why are they on the marquee? Why are they in the main event? And that's what has to happen. I still think they did a great job with Bianca Belair so far. I like where things are going with that. I did mention the fact on the Backlash post show about how they were able to go and build feuds that did not need belts. Well, that's important because they need to build some prestige. Listen, they've already built prestige to both the main titles right now on the men's side because of where Roman Reigns is with it. Okay, so you have to be somebody special to beat Roman Reigns to take either one of those belts, number one. When it comes to Ronda, who are you going to have right now that's going to go after her? Or Bianca Belair? Those are strong champions right now. And for anyone to go ahead and be good enough to match up to those stars, you have to be a certain level. Who's at that level now? We know Drew McIntyre is pretty close to where Roman Reigns is at, but is he somebody that would pass the belts off to? Would Roman drop one of the belts or both to him? No, I don't know if it is yet. Maybe I could put a seed of doubt in there. I could sell myself into saying, you know what? Maybe Drew McIntyre, if they faced each other at a main event, say if it's Money in the Bank or SummerSlam, I can see that happening. Once Bobby Lashley's done with Omos, I can see something happening with him and Roman Reigns. I can see that. But they need to work on some of the other stars and build them up. And with some of the stars they have that are young, that are being positioned with veteran talent, when you look at when you look at MVP with Omos, when you look at Judgment Day with Edge, I like all of it. Those are the right moves. Sheamus working with Butch and Ridge Holland, yeah, those kind of things work. You need to build on that, all on that. What else can you do? And taking some stars that definitely have great, acumen on the upper mid card, pairing up Riddle and Randy Orton, or pairing up AJ Styles and Finn Balor. Also works for a lot of good things as well. And I'm not worried too much about the tag team divisions. I mean, the tag team division's stale. And they're going to have tag teams that they have already set up, but there's no chances of seeing any of those in particular breaking up, except for RK Bro. Most likely we could see that. But if it's going to happen, it has to benefit Riddle, because he has to be a big star coming out of it. He has to get a whole lot of buzz coming out of the breakup. And that's where I think things need to go. I mean, you could have Riddle go heel, and I've talked about that before. You could do that, but I don't know if it's going to be done yet. Now, with Roman Reigns, he's not advertised now for television or for house shows in July and August. So Roman isn't advertised for any Raw or SmackDown shows or non-televised events from June 20th to Labor Day, September 5th. And that's from Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio. And then Meltzer and Brian Alvarez discuss how Reigns is still listed as a featured superstar for Money in the Bank on July 3rd, SummerSlam at the end of the month, and the Clash of the Castle on September 3rd. But he has not been added into the Hell in a Cell event coming up next month. It's not clear if he'll return for the Summer Stadium shows after building programs via satellite like his cousin The Rock has done on occasion in the past, or if he's going to be pulled from advertising closer to his show like Brock Lesnar and WrestleMania Backlash. So we don't know what they're going to do next with him. And then you look and say, okay, what else is next? We also know that Roman Reigns is no longer working small market house shows. PW Insider confirmed that There's no drastic change regarding his status, but he will be working a lesser schedule when it comes to live events. And he will be using him in big markets for house shows, just like Randy Orton, who works selective house shows. So they're not even going to put him in from now till SummerSlam, which tells me that there probably are projects right now that Roman Reigns is being pitched as we speak. He's getting scripts right now. And WWE and Nick Khan, with their talent management group, are most likely working on getting Roman Reigns work in Hollywood and getting him the right deal to go with. And look, this is where Nick Khan has the real bones to do it, because we already know whoever he brought in from CAA, he obviously brought in some really great talent. Now, I don't know if they actually did put together the management group. What happened was they did close it down. But I never really got a real clear as to what happened. But after it was only 5 weeks, they did it and they stopped. I forgot to mention that part. So there was actually a plan to go and have where Amy Tunick was brought on to work as senior vice president. And the plan was going to go on for after 5 weeks, they had decided to change and go a different direction. So I'm not sure what happened, what was there. But you know what? As I'm trying to go along, as we're doing this, I'm just trying to figure out where things go now with the company and where they wanted to go and how this new change helps them on the long run. But I'll tell you what happened was there are a lot of people that are making a lot of comments about this. Hollywood and the press there, they're paying attention. So the Blast.com talked about it. ScreenRant.com actually talked about it. And they put a story out about how can Roman Reigns really follow The Rock's Hollywood success. And so they talked about it on Screen Rant. And they said that, he's already become a dominant heel champion, has a tribal chief moniker, a new, more epic theme song, and listen to the services of Paul Heyman. He is in the longest world championship reign since Hulk Hogan lost the WWF title in 1988. And WWE, as we have said, wants to assist itself with the move. So they don't want to do the talent management group as originally planned. Probably because maybe the scalability of what they were going to do with Amy Tunick was probably too small. But they still had an idea of where they were going to go with this. Now, make mention, The Rock, it took over a decade for him to become the massive box office star he is now. And Dwayne Johnson is arguably much more charismatic and verbally gifted than his younger cousin. But Reigns can get there if WWE is allowing him to put the time and work in. Now, they go along and say that Reigns already has one real acting role of note, and that was along with The Rock in Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. He did fine there, but he wasn't exactly asked to show much range, basically playing a variation of himself. But Dwayne Johnson endeared himself to Hollywood through a combination of sheer will, explosive action roles, and natural charisma, not necessarily his eloquent Oscar-winning acting abilities. Handsome, heavily muscled, well-spoken, extremely disciplined, Reigns may well have the skill set he needs to make a similar transition. But the result would be just a bit ironic after his character bashed 16-time world champion John Cena for just doing that. The prospect also is the idea that his plan to push the company's plan to push Reigns towards Hollywood might backfire, leading their biggest name to follow The Rock, John Cena, Dave Bautista toward full-time acting and away from the ring. As much as Reigns has done for the company, Vince McMahon owes it to him to indulge any acting dreams he might have. If the grass proves greener than on sitting in the ring, it's only a matter of time before audiences wave goodbye to yet another one of the fan favorites. But I am under the belief that he's going to make it. I don't see how he doesn't. And to think he doesn't have the kind of charisma, listen, he hasn't had it for a long time. But he has charisma. And we know that even with the way he's positioned before he was on, running with the Shield, or he was just alone as the big dog, okay, that's a different story. But this current incarnation the last 2 years, he's grown into himself. It's a confidence that's unbecoming. I've never seen of him so much of. But he's getting there, and it's working for him. So I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think he's got a lot of what can be done. And remember, the other thing, too, we don't know that Roman Reigns wants to do, besides doing Hollywood, is that it's not just acting. Because, the money they're going to make off of acting, aside from what they made in their wrestling career, they all become entrepreneurs. Now, as we know, The Rock already has his own brand of vodka. He has his own production company. He's doing multiple projects, including his own. Bloomberg actually recently reported that John Cena, aside from his work in acting as well and other projects, he is now going to be a co-founder of a premixed cocktail brand called Thomas Ashbourne. And the brand will debut coming up and have a variety of ready-to-drink cocktails. Each drink will be attached to a different celebrity, and Cena's one of them. And then among the other stars are going to have their own drinks will be Sarah Jessica Parker, Rosario Dawson, Ashley Benson, Vanessa Hudgens, and rapper Playboy Cardi in the same venture. Rock has a Terramana brand, by the way, of vodka. And so, there's a whole lot there of what people can talk about here and where things go for Roman Reigns. So we've already talked about who there could be out there that could really be helpful for him, that could really stand out for what he's doing down the line. And by the way, Dave Bautista has also done the same thing for himself as well. So right now, Bautista's worth $16 million in terms of his income. He just started a new business by opening up a tattoo parlor in Tampa Bay. There's more of that as well. So his tattoo studio is named DC Society Inc. And location of the shop is important to Bautista. It's the town he grew up in. So it's not, for him, it was more than anything else about being able to put that business together. So there's a whole lot more going on with what they're doing. This is what the other stars in the company need to understand. They could follow the same path. It might be way too ambitious for them. But the fact that WWE is willing to go ahead and do this kind of level of work, obviously it benefits them. We know that. But if they're going to exercise every possible chance for Roman Reigns to hit it big in Hollywood, why not? It's what makes WWE stand out more than every other company. That's what they need to be. They need to be the Hollywood brand. They need to be the big franchise brand. They need to be the McDonald's of what everybody else is doing, right? They are the big corporate name synonymous with wrestling. Even though they want to talk about wrestling, they want to call it sports entertainment. But that's their plan. So I can't knock them for why they're going to do what they're going to do. What's incredible, there's a whole lot of people talking about it. And I think this move, even though they did the change with his contract, it could have been done any time because they just said that the deal was reworked. They didn't say he was up for a deal or there was any kind of an extension. They just said the deal was reworked for him to go ahead and work less dates. That's it. So we should have seen this all happening from here down the line. It was going to come up. I don't blame them for what they were going to do with this in the first place. But this is what they decided to do. Anyway, let's go and move along and talk about the continued success of WWE when it comes to their earnings. Because they did have an earnings call last Thursday. I didn't get a chance to go ahead and talk much about it, but we'll go ahead and bring it up now. A couple of highlights that were brought up by CNBC that really stood out for what they're doing is they're looking to boost their sponsorship revenue as live events return. And one of the key media deals is about to expire. That's the one with Hulu. That's been rebroadcasting Raw and SmackDown on their platform. Now, that could change because then, would Peacock then take over the streaming after that? What will be the change that comes up with streaming rights going forward if that Hulu deal is even necessary or if somebody else wants to pick it up? So CNBC made some comments about after their first quarter earnings call, saying that it would make sense for WWE to broaden its partnership with NBC Universal's Peacock, and that they can squeeze more out of their sponsorship deals. The company leans on intellectual property built around performers like The Undertaker, John Cena, The Rock, Roman Reigns, and Bianca Belair. Revenues from live events, which are returning now. Media offerings are fueled by sponsorship dollars. And this year, they aim to fill football stadiums and expand its programming. That's according to Frank Riddick, the chief financial officer with the WWE, who took over the job in November. And in 2021, WWE reported roughly $72 million for advertising combined and sponsorships in its media and live events businesses. They made more than $10 million in sponsorship fees alone for WrestleMania. That's according to Stephanie McMahon. Their partners included Toyota, DoorDash, Rocket Mortgage, and Rihanna's Fenty Beauty Cosmetics line. And analysts suggested that WWE is undervalued when it comes to sponsorship revenue, that the company lures about $35 million per year from sponsorships, while UFC is able to pull $100 million. So they should be getting a lot more. A sponsorship consulting firm put a study about WWE fans. 67% of their fans are more likely to consume brands associated with the company. And that's ahead of the majority average for all the other 11 biggest sports leagues. And so the analysts out there say that there's a lot of potential and opportunity for WWE, and that WWE could clear easily over $100 million in annual sponsorship revenue. They could do better what a UFC does. But the WWE might not be the right fit for the most affluent categories or top-tier brands. And that most of their money they get from streaming right now, of the media business, $278 million of its $333 million overall revenue in the quarter ending March 31st. Nick Khan says that the company is preparing for key media deals amid an increasingly cluttered streaming marketplace. So the current days right now is that for people that want to watch it on day 2, so after the next day after Raw and SmackDown have aired, subscribers could go to watch Raw and SmackDown or another weekly show 24 hours after they first air. Raw. So now after 30 days, subscribers to Universal's Peacock service can watch the shows. And that Khan says a new player could enter the sports streaming game. He actually even pontificated that think maybe Netflix might do that. But Netflix probably wouldn't be interested in WWE anyway. But that's just, Nick Khan kind of putting the idea out there in the earnings call just to see if Netflix will actually, see the carrot being dangled in front of them. WWE is also looking to expand overseas, particularly India, home to 1 billion people and a growing middle class. And the content they say is being shown on over 180 countries. 25 million viewers combined for exclusive events, showcasing wrestlers competing against Indian-born performers. And that WrestleMania drew more than 50 million viewers last month in India alone. So Khan looks at India as a very hugely important market, but he added that WWE is waiting for networks to finish bidding on rights to cricket, which is the most popular sport in the country, before they look at their opportunities there themselves. And there's stuff we could talk about when it comes to the earnings call and what was being said about it, which I didn't get a chance to look through, but it's always interesting when the earnings calls come out and see what was being said by Nick Khan. Because I'm always going to keep an eye on what Nick Khan says himself. So let's just look at some of the things that Nick Khan actually said himself throughout the call that I think would be significant. So in the call, he talked about India, and he talked about the streaming game. We talked about that just a minute ago. They talked a lot about Cardiff, Wales, and the Clash at the Castle event that's coming up in September 3rd. And then the ratings question was asked. Steve Cahall, an analyst with Wells Fargo, he asked about, could you speak a little bit more about ratings? You had a really successful WrestleMania, but wondering if the key performance indicators deck shows ratings still trending flat to down. I know you had a different mix of episodes, but there has been a rebound in ratings since WrestleMania. And this is what Nick Khan had to answer the ratings question, and this is what he said, quote, "Yes, I think if you look at the entire past quarter, ratings were up on Raw, ratings were up on SmackDown, and in fact, 3 weeks ago on a Friday night, SmackDown on the USA, on Fox Network beat the NBA playoff game, which was an ABC head-to-head in both the overall ratings and the demo. So we're confident the ratings have been strong. A lot of linear ratings, as you know, are down significantly, which are especially in the original scripted programming side. I'm not sure how much more, but you're going to see in terms of high-end scripted content on network television. We'll see, but we're very strong outside of the Olympics. We're very pleased with them. Good answer. And then he was asked about the cost per measurements when it comes to what the networks are getting on their deals, you know, with the broadcast rights. So they are looking at increases most likely. We're good with where they're going. Obviously, any increase is a good thing for us. They mentioned how the Peacock relationship is on the sales side is relatively new. The Fox relationship we're a couple of years into. It takes time for these things to get up and running the way they need to be. We think our subscriber numbers are delivering. We think our advertising numbers, we deliver. We think ratings-wise, we deliver, so we feel good about it. And that's really what it just came down to in the call itself. So I got to appreciate where he came from. Like, it's, you know, Nick Khan's very good at handling these calls. And when you don't have to worry about that for Vince McMahon to go and say anything and have to go and stand up for it, Nick Khan's just handling business. And whether you like it or not, the onus now going on for WWE going forward, for them to go and do well, they need to make sure that they're able to do something with those stadium shows. Now they know that Roman Reigns is not going to be in the picture, because he specifically said he's not being billed right now between now and basically SummerSlam up until Cardiff. So you got 3 stadium shows with no Roman between now and Labor Day. The summer is going to be an amazing time to see what this company is able to do. The pressure is on them. Without Roman Reigns, what are they going to do? I'm excited about it. Can they pull something off really big in the next roughly 4 months to really make things stand out? I'm curious as to how they all do that. A couple more stories I want to bring up real quick before we wrap things up. While WWE feels like they're doing pretty good, they're handling the shareholders pretty well, and they're handling their broadcast partners pretty well. What about AEW? As we know, we talked about the WarnerMedia Discovery merger. Well, we're learning some more information about that. Dave Meltzer confirms on the Wrestling Observer's Forum that AEW will have a big presence of the TV upfronts. The upfronts are where shows or major advertisers and executives meet, and the idea is to show off their best programming. So, in terms of TBS and TNT, we're going to get to see AEW push themselves out for advertisers. And they're getting their own spot at the upfronts to present. That's huge for them. Let's see what they come up with. The fact they're even being involved like that is a big deal for them, so that's great. Plus, the other thing, too, is that I mentioned before, I might have mentioned on this program, on the Broadcasters Podcast, my sister show, I may mention of how WarnerMedia and Discovery, they decided not to go and worry about scripted programming so much. They're starting to cut some of that out of their programming, so they're more concerned about live sports programming and more reality-based programming, which fits exactly what AEW is right now. And the idea that AEW even might have now a reality show coming along for themselves as well, basically to replace where Rhodes at the top was. So looks like Warner Brothers and Media and Discovery are going to continue to be okay with AEW going forward. That's a good sign. Another good sign that's going on now is the AEW is planning to go back to Arthur Ashe Stadium for another Dynamite Grand Slam special later this year. I don't know if they mentioned when it's going to be, but I remember it was last September they did it, correct? But they have not provided a date yet. And Tony Khan actually did a lot of commentary when it comes to, talking this week. He actually went on the Sword of City podcast, and he talked to a lot of different things when it comes to handling the roster of AEW and how large it is. He makes the point about Dark and Dark Elevation, how important those shows are. Mentioning that we've seen people like Max Caster, Will Hobbs, and it's actually Max Caster and Anthony Bones worked, separately on Dark, and then ended up coming together as a team, and a number of other people as well. It helped us enhance our women's division. I think a lot of really quality people started wrestling there and got a lot of good reps in, and now they're becoming really solid TV wrestlers for us. And that Dark and Dark Elevation have given us an outlet to grow, but really with 3 hours of TV and so many great stars on the roster, it is a challenge. He believes that the company needs the fans to believe in them for it to succeed. And another story that came out where a little bit of bragging rights for Tony Khan, and the Sportster.com actually made a point of it about how well AEW is doing in the UK. And Josh Coulson of the Sportster actually said, well, he's sort of right. Now, more people are watching the first showings of Dynamite than they are Raw and SmackDown in the UK. But that's also because of the channels that they're on, as we also know. So the ratings themselves they're saying, okay, Dynamite can't compare to Raw and SmackDown in the US, but the numbers reveal more people in Great Britain are watching AEW than at WWE, and that WWE's UK reportings are reportedly so infrequently that you have to go back to the week starting March 14, 2022 to find that data that can be actually compared. Now, in that ratings period, March 14, 2022, which is right before WrestleMania, 46,000 people watching Raw, 50,000 watching SmackDown, 150,000 watching Dynamite. It's not big numbers over here, but that's the whole thing you got to deal with. Plus, remember, this is a late night programming for all Britain. So Raw, SmackDown, NXT don't start till 1 a.m. Dynamite still doesn't air live unless you have a Fight subscription. And the first airing usually happens on Fridays at around 11 p.m. And AEW has also had the benefit of airing on ITV4, a free-to-watch channel with everyone can watch on TV, and WWE is on exclusive to BT Sport, which requires a subscription. And just think about all that. So keep this all in mind, folks. When you're looking down the line and say to yourself, okay, where wrestling is right now, we see AEW continuing to do things right now, which is good. Happy to see that. WWE obviously needs to keep their moving forward to go and make sure that things go well. And we just need to find out, leading from example, that WWE is able to go ahead and pull off what some people might think is unthinkable, but being able to replace Roman Reigns at the top of the card. Because if they're able to do that, and they're just looking down the line when the broadcast deals come up and what they're able to do with the stadium shows, if wrestling gets hot for WWE like we hope it will be because of what they're able to do, that only resonates and trickles down to the rest of the wrestling shows. So keep that in mind too. By the way, a couple little quick notes I want to make of. Glad to see Alexa Bliss coming back. Glad to see her back as the goddess. I love that. Of course, they can't get rid of the doll because it's just going to be just too much merch to sell on that. I do like the Owen Hart tournament so far and what they've been building it up to right now. That Jeff Hardy Darby Allin match tonight on Dynamite was sick and extremely gruesome. Couldn't believe how they all went out as far as they did. That was something else. Coming up, they have some good matches already scheduled on the card. Let's go through those real quick. They already got a bunch of matches already scheduled, and they're less than 2 weeks, about 2 weeks away. Oh, by the way, Hikaru Shida hurt in the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament after the Philadelphia Street Fight, and Chris Stanlander is now the alternate that's going to take her place in the tournament. So, May 29th, Double or Nothing, Las Vegas. So far on the card, we have AEW World Heavyweight Championship, Hangman Adam Page versus CM Punk. Great build for that feud. Thunder Rosa versus Serena Deeb for the Women's World title. The tournament finals for the Owen Hart Foundation, MJF versus Wardlow. However, they will make that happen because there's a few more trials that Wardlow has to go through when it comes to 10 lashes of the belt and a steel cage match with Shawn Spears. And now we have a buy-in match with Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling now taking on the newly formed tag team of Hookhausen, Hook and Danhausen. Good stuff. So I like it all. Hey, good stuff all that there. And that's the show for tonight. Thank you for listening in, as you always do. Quick reminder, I want to let everybody know out there, my one-on-one podcasting series, I decided to close that show out this week because I decided to go ahead and rebrand it and make it a different show. And I hope some of you are going to take a chance to go and listen to it yourselves and tell me what you think about it. My new series is called Depraved and Debaucherous. A very salacious name, but it is talking about the stamp of being of different things, cultural, societal norms, dating, relationships, how people interact with each other, especially younger, men and women out there, and status seeking lifestyles, the choices being made, all of that has a level of depravity and debauchery. And I want to talk all about that here on the program. So I will be putting out shows. The audio format goes out Mondays and Fridays. You can look for it at kingofpodcasts.com. Just look at the KOP Radio Network. Or just look for Depraved and Debaucherous. Just look for those three names. It'll pop up in your Google search. And then just look wherever you see podcasts. Go look for it now. It's already been updated on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, among other places. Go ahead and check that out for yourselves. And then Personal Broadcasters Podcast, which comes up each week. So make sure to go check that out as well. Thanks for listening in. As you always do, come back for another Wrestling Is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.